A retired teacher named Margaret emailed me last month. She'd sold her house in Ohio, moved to a town most Floridians have never heard of, and told me something I can't stop thinking about. She said, "I finally feel like I'm living, not just surviving." She pays $800 a month total for everything: rent, utilities, food, gas. $800 in Florida. And she's 15 minutes from a crystal clear natural spring where manatees swim up to say hello. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's impossible. Florida is expensive. Florida is crowded. Florida is retirees packed into condos, fighting over parking spaces, watching their savings evaporate into HOA fees and hurricane insurance. And yeah, that Florida exists. That's the Florida they want you to see. That's the Florida with the billboards and the commercials and the real estate agents who smell commission from a mile away. But there's another Florida, a quieter one, an older one. The one that existed before developers turned every square inch of coastline into a luxury investment opportunity. That's the Florida Margaret found. And that's the Florida I'm going to show you today. If you're tired of videos that just list the same 10 beach towns everyone already knows about, if you're sick of being told that comfortable retirement requires a 7-figure portfolio, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to give you information that might actually change your life. And if that sounds dramatic, wait until you see these numbers. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. 93% of people who retire to Florida settle within 50 miles of a coastline, and 93% of them are overpaying, not by a little. By 40, 50, sometimes $100,000 or more. Just to say they can see the water from their window. Meanwhile, the real gems, the towns where your social security check actually feels like enough, where crime is low and neighbors still wave at each other, where nature isn't something you drive to but something you live inside. Those towns are sitting there, empty, waiting, because nobody bothered to look. Until now. I'm about to show you 4 places that most Floridians don't even know exist. 4 towns that give you safety, affordability, and genuine quality of life without asking you to compromise on a single one. These aren't theoretical. These aren't up and coming. These are livable right now today on a fixed income. Let's start with number 4, Chiefland, Florida. Levy County, the Nature Coast. If you've never heard of it, that's exactly why it belongs on this list. Chiefland sits along Florida's Nature Coast, which is the stretch of Gulf shoreline that tourism forgot. No high-rises, no beach resorts. Just rivers, springs, and miles of untouched wilderness that looks the same today as it did 100 years ago. Here's what Chiefland offers. Median home. Prices hovering around $150,000 to $180,000. I'll say that again because it sounds fake. $150,000 for a house in Florida with a yard and a garage and neighbors who actually know your name. The cost of living here is significantly below both the state and national averages. Property taxes won't devour your fixed income. Groceries cost less. Gas costs less. Everything costs less because nobody's inflating prices to extract money from tourists. And the nature? Manatee Springs State Park is minutes away. Crystal clear water that stays 72 degrees year-round. You can kayak with manatees. You can swim in springs so clear you can see the bottom 40 feet down. There are 9 natural springs in the county alone. Chiefland isn't fancy. It doesn't try to be. It's the Florida your grandparents fell in love with, before everything became a condo with an ocean view and a 6-figure price tag. And here's the paradox. The less a town markets itself, the more authentic it remains. Chiefland has no tourism board pushing vacation packages, no Instagram influencers discovering it. And that's precisely why retirees who find it tend to stay. But maybe you want something with a little more history. A downtown you can actually walk through. That brings us to number 3, Live Oak, Florida, Suwannee County. There's a song about the Suwannee River that's been stuck in America's head for over 150 years. Way down upon the Suwannee River. You've heard it, everyone's heard it. But almost nobody knows you can actually live on its banks. for less than you'd pay for a studio apartment in Tampa. Live Oak has a population of around 7,000 people, small enough to know your neighbors, big enough to have everything you need: a Publix, a Walmart, doctors, a hospital within reasonable distance. Median home prices run between $160,000 and $200,000. Monthly cost of living hovers around $2,500 for a single person. That includes housing, food, transportation, healthcare, everything. The town itself has a historic downtown that's been quietly revitalizing. New businesses opening next to century-old storefronts, coffee shops and antique stores and restaurants that don't belong to chains. There's also Advent Christian Village nearby, which is a well-respected faith-based retirement community for those who want that kind of structured support. And the Springs, oh, the Springs. Ichetucknee Springs State Park is 20 miles away. Turtle Springs is 2 miles. You can float down rivers so pristine they don't look real. And you're right off Interstate 10, which means you're connected to the rest of Florida without being congested by it. Here's the emotional truth about Live Oak. We associate affordable with boring. We assume that if something costs less, there must be nothing to do. Live Oak flips that completely. Nature itself becomes your entertainment, and nature doesn't charge admission. The Suwannee River doesn't care how much money you have. It just keeps flowing, the same way it has for centuries, waiting for people wise enough to sit beside it. Now, what if you're someone who loves lakes, who wants water but doesn't need the ocean's price tag? That brings us to number 2. Sebring, Florida, Highlands County. Most people only know Sebring because of a car race. The 12 Hours of Sebring. Famous among motorsports fans. Unknown to almost everyone else. But here's what those racing fans miss when they leave. Sebring is surrounded by over 100 lakes. 100. Lake Jackson alone offers swimming, fishing, boating, and sunsets that look like paintings. Median home price? Around $202,000 as of October 2025. Cost of living index of 83, which means it's 17% below the national average. Crime rates run approximately 20% below the Florida average. And then there's the downtown. Sebring has this iconic feature called the Circle, a round historic district built in the 1920s that's still alive today. Shops and restaurants and a small-town charm that makes you feel like you stepped into a different era. Not in a sad, faded way. In the way that makes you remember what towns used to feel like before everything became a chain restaurant and a parking lot. Sebring is also known as the Value Golf Capital of America, which means if you're a golfer, you can play quality courses without the country club price tags. The contradiction of Sebring is beautiful. Race fans know it for speed, but the real appeal is how slowly life moves here when the engines stop. The lakes don't rush. The sunsets take their time. And retirees who settle here discover something rare. A town where time itself seems to relax. But maybe you want the most affordable option possible. The place where your money works hardest. The town that 40% of residents have already chosen for their final chapter. That brings us to number 1. Inverness, Florida. Citrus County. 40% of Inverness is over 65 years old. Let me say that differently. 4 out of every 10 people in this town are retirement age. That's not a warning. That's proof. When that many people choose to spend their final chapter somewhere, that's not an accident. That's a verdict. That's thousands of people who looked at every option in Florida and said, this one, this is where I want to be. Median home listing price sits around $263,000. Cost of living runs about 12% below the national average and 15% below the state average. Violent crime rates are 30% below the Florida average. HCA Florida Citrus Hospital is right in town. You don't have to drive an hour for medical care. The Withlacoochee State Trail runs 46 miles through the area. Walking, biking, nature, all accessible from downtown. There's Sela Apopka Lake and Henderson Lake for water access. The historic downtown is walkable. The community is tight-knit but welcoming. Inverness has been designated a trail town, which means the entire infrastructure is designed around outdoor recreation and pedestrian access. You can walk to breakfast, you can bike to the lake. You can live a life where your car is optional, not mandatory. Here's the thing about Inverness that separates it from everywhere else. It doesn't need attention. It doesn't advertise. It doesn't have a marketing budget trying to convince you it's worth your time. It just exists, peacefully, affordably, beautifully, waiting for people wise enough to look beyond the billboards. And that's the emotional truth of this entire video. The best-kept secrets in Florida aren't being kept. They're just being ignored. By developers who can't profit from them. By real estate agents who can't collect commissions on them. By influencers who can't get sponsored posts from them. Chiefland gives you springs and rivers and a cost of living that feels almost impossible. Live Oak gives you history, community, and a river that's been calling people home for over a century. Sebring gives you lakes, golf, and a downtown circle that makes you believe in small-town America again. And Inverness gives you everything, quietly, without asking for anything in return except your presence. These places aren't trending, they're not going viral, and maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the best life isn't found in the places everyone's talking about. Maybe it's found in the places no one's talking about, because the people who live there are too busy actually living to post about it. So here's what I want you to do. If this changed how you think about retirement, or if you're already packing your bags for one of these towns, tell me in the comments. Tell me which one surprised you. Tell me if I missed your hidden gem. Tell me your story. And if this felt useful, if it felt different from the usual Florida content that just recycles the same information over and over, maybe hit that subscribe button. I'm not here to get rich off YouTube. I'm here to make sure you have the information that actually matters. The stuff that could save you tens of thousands of dollars in mistakes. The stuff that could give you the retirement you actually deserve. Thanks for watching. And wherever you end up, whether it's one of these 4 towns or somewhere else entirely, I hope it feels like home. I hope you find your Margaret moment. That moment where you look around and realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're finally living. I'll see you in the next one.